Here's Spy Movie News with a mid-August 2020 update on the upcoming spy movies, The Kingsman, Tenet, Black Widow, and Red Notice. Hi, this is Tom Pizzato with SpyMovieNavigator.com with a special edition of Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Let's go to the latest news. Now, we've mentioned all of these movies we're going to talk about today on our website in an article we published in April. This article talked about the upcoming spy movie schedule for 2020, and we're going to update that list through this podcast. So let's start with the movie Tenet. This is the Christopher Nolan movie that was really supposed to be the first tentpole movie released in the US during the pandemic. What happens here will have ramifications for the industry as a whole. The release has been pushed numerous times as the movie industry is trying to figure out how to release the movie safely and in a manner which consumers will still go to a theater. According to an article by Tom Brueggemann in IndieWire, the current plan for Tenet is a UK release date of August 26, 2020, and in 50 other territories over the next couple days. China's release date is still unknown, but the movie has been approved there. It will have a US release date on September 3rd in select theaters. Now, currently, 45 states in the US permit indoor theaters to operate, now with some restrictions and safety precautions. Cinemark, Regal, and AMC all have their scheduled opening dates by the end of August, with wide releases starting in August 21st. Warner Brothers is re-releasing Inception as well. From what I've read, you should probably watch Inception again before seeing Tenet. So, as Brueggemann's article states, even if California and New York couldn't open, and a few other areas besides, more than 80% of the population would still have a chance to see Tenet in an indoor theater. We're eager to see how many people will actually go. As Seth Rogen said about Tenet in an interview with Hollywood Reporter, for a while it seemed like Chris's answer was to kill his greatest fans, Rogen told THR. But that's not the answer of today, it seems. So that's good. But we have no idea. We don't want to be the first to rush into anything. Well, this movie is. So we here at Spy Movie Navigator are watching this one very, very closely. The next spy movie scheduled to be released is The Kingsman, the prequel to the other Kingsman movies. This is still scheduled for September 18th, and it's been that way for a long time in the US. We can only imagine that what happens with Tenet will have a huge effect as to whether this date changes. Also, in an article on this prequel on the MovieWeb.com website by John Fugue, they say that director Matthew Vaughn said that this prequel will lay the foundations for Kingsman 3. He says, we put the seeds for what's going to happen in Kingsman 3 all the way back into this. Now remember, this is a prequel, and there have been two Kingsman movies prior to this. So it'll be interesting to see how they lay these seeds and if they drop anything in there to lay seeds for what already happened in Kingsman 1 and Kingsman 2, if you will. This does sound to me like Star Wars numbering. So Kingsman 1 now becomes Kingsman 2. Kingsman 2 I'm confused with the numbering here because this prequel then will, I guess, become number 1. I don't get it, but that's okay. That's what they're calling it. In industry news, two big recent announcements may change theatrical releases for a long time. One by Disney and one by AMC and Universal. Will Black Widow and No Time to Die be affected by these announcements? The first is an acknowledgement of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the movie business. Disney announced last week that Mulan no longer will have its initial release in theaters. Instead, they will be releasing it on Disney Plus, but in addition to the $6.99 Disney Plus monthly subscription price, if you want to see this movie, you can rent it for $29.99. It will be released theatrically in markets which do not have access to Disney Plus. This is really a country-based thing. You can see it in a theater if you're in a country that doesn't have Disney Plus. Initially, we were surprised by the price point. However, after doing some research and calculations, we think the $30 rental price is actually a good point for a family movie. According to Statista.com, in 2019, the average ticket price in North American movie theater was $9.16, and AMC was coming in a little bit higher than that. Let's make it easy and let's call it $10 to just make this math easy. So a family of 3 would be able to see this movie in a theater for about $30, and that's just the price of the ticket. Now, if you buy any food or drink, you can see the price is going to escalate. So to us, that means the price actually seems fairly reasonable. Are you really going to sit down as an individual and watch this movie? Maybe at that point you might say, I'll pass on the $30. I'll wait till it comes available at a cheaper price point. But if you want to see it right away, you've got your kids, you want to get the family together, that price seems fairly reasonable. So if we assume that the same number of people would have gone to see this in a theater, Disney will actually make more money off of this deal than if it was in a theater. Week.com had an article where they talked in 2016 saying that U.S. theaters end up paying about 60% of their ticket sales price back to the movie studios. And on a first run, that can go as high as 90%. So to Disney's bottom line, they would net out about the equivalent of just under 5 people going to the theater to see the movie at that 60% number. So if you take the math there, plus you need the Disney subscription. Given the estimate of over $1 billion expected of global box office for Mulan, this has to really hurt theaters. According to an article in Variety, Disney CEO Bob Chapek says this is a one-time event. We're looking at Mulan as a one-off as opposed to saying there's some new business windowing model that we're looking at. This quote was intriguing as Black Widow was pushed back from May to November in the US. MCU fans are now asking Disney to do the same release strategy with Black Widow as they're doing with Mulan. So we're going to find out if this one-off is really a one-off, or is the deal too good for Disney not to make it part of its release model, which again is going to put them in a fight with the theaters. The second general bit of movie news is that prior to this Disney announcement, Universal and AMC had made a deal to try to quell the fears there's a straight to digital killing the movie theater market. So if we remember when Universal released Trolls, they released it in theaters and on digital on the same day. AMC banned Universal movies from their theaters at that point. So this new deal mends those fences. And what's going to happen is Universal movies will be in AMC theaters exclusively for at least 3 weekends or 17 days instead of the old 70-day model. So if a Universal movie is played at AMC 17 days or 3 weekends, they've got it exclusively in a theater before they release to digital. So after 17 days, then they have the choice of releasing it to digital or keeping it in the theaters. In an August 4th article on CNBC.com by Sarah Whitten, she talks about how Cinemark and Regal, which combined have more theaters than AMC, they don't have nor do they want a deal like the one AMC struck. So this could get really interesting. Does Universal go AMC exclusive because they've got this deal with them if Cinemark and Regal won't pick them up? But again, remember, Cinemark and Regal 2 and 3 in the movie theater industry. What's going to happen there? It's going to be really interesting to see how that actually plays out, especially when you juxtapose it with the information about what's happening with Disney's release of Mulan. Well, if the theaters really do get a 17-day in the theater, and maybe they don't have to pay 90%, maybe they have to pay 80%. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. They really aren't going to be able to make that much money off of a movie when it comes in-house. So because they don't get that long tail where they generally pay less percentage back on a movie. And if a movie gets hot and stays hot for a while, that can be very profitable for a theater. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes longer term. And it's going to be really interesting when you think about something like a Black Widow or No Time to Die or even Mulan. I'd rather see those on a big screen. They're big screen movies. Watching them on, a large screen TV isn't going to be the same feel as seeing those movies, which are big movies, big visual movies in a movie theater. Second, with Disney charging for Mulan separate from the subscription pricing, how are movie theaters going to compete with this? So we're assuming that this one-off ends up not really being a one-off, and Disney takes this model with Black Widow. Pure speculation on our part, we're not sure, but that's our guess. But if they do, how are the movie theater chains going to react? Times are changing, and it's not just because of the pandemic. The combined effects of digital distribution with the impact of the pandemic are likely to change the movie industry to a very large degree. We think the studios want to accelerate the move to digital, and the pandemic is giving them the excuse to do so. So stay tuned, and we'll keep you posted. Finally, the movie called Red Notice is pushed to 2021. They have not given it a release date yet. So there you have the latest news on the current state of spy movies for 2020. We'll be shocked if it doesn't change again with the pandemic, but we hope to get to see at least a couple of these movies before the end of the year. So this has been Tom Pizzato from SpyMovieNavigator.com. Don't forget to subscribe to these podcasts on your favorite podcast app or on our YouTube channel. The show name is Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk with you soon.